Spoiler alert, I'm not going to mention Brian. There's an old Arab saying that goes, we should always examine or listen to the words that are said and not the person who says them. Now, I really like that idea, but I think in practice... Oh, thank you. I thought it was some sort of strange semaphore. Sorry, oh yeah, so I think actually in practice what they are saying is a lovely idea. Listen to words and not who says them. I think in actual fact, often this is not the case. And there's a famous, I think it's famous piece saying someone in the public sector recently, and they said that we have had enough of experts. We don't need to listen to experts anymore. Now, if I tell you that it was National Treasure David Attenborough who said that, you might say, well, that's interesting, and maybe he's acknowledging the limits of natural science, and it's quite a humble position, and you might kind of think that has some credibility. On the other hand, if I told you the person who said that, you have to excuse me, I tried to memorise this. The person who said this was the current Secretary of State for Levelling Up, the Housing and Communities Secretary, Minister for the Government Intergovernmental Relations, and also a celebrity appearance, famous for a celebrity appearance at Cinderella's A Go-Go in Aberdeen. Yes, Michael Gove. You might think, oh, actually, experts. I'm not sure. I think maybe it is sometimes going to listen to experts. Now, a couple of years ago, a few years ago, I had to have root canal surgery and my teeth, and it was incredibly unpleasant, but the person who did it had been to dentistry, and she'd also spent a lot of time, practicing things like that under close supervision of people who could do it. And while I didn't like the experience, I was glad it was done, and she seemed incredibly adroit, competent at what she was doing. But I'm inviting you to take Michael Gove at his word, and I wonder if he needs root canal surgery. But he would be happy for someone like Kevin, my next door neighbour, whose main job is as a dino rod operative. But he's got a passing interest in dentistry. In fact, he refers to himself as a dentistry hobbyist. And I wonder actually if Michael Gove would be happy for Kevin to be let loose on his a root canal. Because Kevin is prepared to have a bash. In earlier this year, a cricketer called Oliver Robinson, was making his debut for England's Test cricket team, and during the course of the match, some of you remember it came to be uncovered, but 10 years before, when he was 17, he'd made some very tweets that were deemed to be really inappropriate. Actually, I'm going to quote. One of them was that girls who play video games have more sex. And I think there's two things we can say about that. Firstly, he may all be confusing causality with correlation, or maybe he was just talking utter bollocks. I'm really sorry. So when this came to light, Robinson was forced to apologise to his teammates. He was forced to apologise to, made a public statement that I'm assuming someone had written for him. He was, stopped from playing Test cricket for the next 2 matches. I think he went. Sussex said you can have some time away from the game, mind you, apart from anything else, I'm sure he was really glad, to have time away. And at the time, some of the cricketing pundits, who are expert cricket pundits, and often they are also obviously expert cricketers, or they have been, also appeared to be able to offer their opinion on issues of philosophical, moral and ethical behaviour as well. And one of the notable ones was, I'm going to have to read this directly for you, but the chairman of the ECB, Tom Harrison, who, his response on behalf of the ECB, English Cricket Board, he said this, he said, "I do not have words to express how disappointed I am." It's like nonsense, I'm very disappointed in you. That an England cricket men's player has chosen to write tweets of this nature, however long ago it may have been. I mean, one thing to notice there is that in order to say he had no words, Tom Harrison did use words. So I think we can agree that Robinson's tweets were, completely out of order. And, he quite rightly was banned, and, all that sort of appropriate action was taken. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, I think it really appropriate, almost like a public service, that I just tell you about 4 other tweets that Robinson made around this time that have come into my possession. So the first one is that he was in an under-18 team, and they had a pre-season friendly in Scotland, and there was an after-match. Do you want to stop?
Sorry, we just sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Do one more tweet! Do one more tweet! Do one more tweet! Yeah!
Alright, sorry. Oh yes, so the first tweet, the extra tweet was, at the post-match meal I sat with the Scottish umpire, who is also a driving instructor, and I asked him how he kept the natives off the booze long enough for them to pass the driving test. SMH. Now for those of you who are under 60, SMH means shake my head. The second tweet was posted after a marathon. It wasn't a marathon that Robinson ran, it was one that one of his teammates ran for charity, and Robinson went to the finish to support him. And when he was at the finish, a disabled athlete hauled her body over the 26 miles, 152 yards, was obviously exhausted and wrapped in those foil blankets.